Hello, I thought today I'd do another what did I use 1 year on video where I gathered together art materials from an art haul a year ago and look at how much I've used them and how much I liked them. I'm a bit behind on doing this though, so this one's a little bit different in that I've gathered together things from a couple of different art hauls, and also I've had them for over a year now. Some of these are around 18 months old. I've grouped the products into different categories, and the first one that I'll look at are some Etchr products. Etchr had kindly reached out and sent me these products for free, and they'd also sent me their brush roll with watercolour brush set in it. Previous to that, I had bought an Etchr sketchbook out of my own money. This was the Everyday Etchr sketchbook. It's A5 sized, and this was cold pressed, and I do prefer cold pressed paper. They'd sent me a hot pressed sketchbook. So I'd tried it out with acrylic markers to kind of take advantage of the smoother paper. And it had worked quite well with those. But then I didn't pull it out again. I'd gone back to using my cold press sketchbook. In the meantime, I'd been given another hot press sketchbook, and this time you'll probably have seen this more recently, but in the meantime I have been using this a lot more and getting on better with the hot press paper. So I will get round to using the other hot press sketchbook sent to me by Etchr once I've finished these ones. As far as the Etchr paint palette goes, this is the ceramic one which holds 19 paints, and I did have this in my art case for quite a while and I was quite happy using it. I used it enough that I needed to refill these. It's quite a pleasing ceramic palette. It fits nicely into your hand, so you can be painting away like that. If anything, I'd say that the pans are a little bit small, and so that's probably why I've reverted back to using palettes in my travel bag with larger pans. But other than the pan size, I haven't really had any complaints about this set. I think it's quite pleasing to use. The paint from the writing is worn off and it's got a little bit battered, but that doesn't bother me too much. The Etchr watercolour brushes and brush roll though I didn't keep. I can be pretty ruthless at getting rid of things which I just don't think I'm going to use very much. And whilst the Etchr brushes were pretty nice, I personally am happier using slightly softer brushes like Princeton Neptunes and Silver Black Velvets, and those are the ones I usually reach for. I'll talk about watercolours next. Around the time about 18 months ago, I received a couple of different watercolour sets from Paul Rubens. So there was the QIAOMEI tube set. It's a very nice student grade watercolour set, and I squeezed some out into this palette. I've hardly used this though. I just keep it on hand for visiting nieces and nephews and that kind of thing. I'll just show you the paints though. So they re-wet nicely and they're very pigmented. I've got no particular complaints about them. I've just got professional watercolours, which I prefer. I don't have the tube set anymore. I was also sent a set of Paul Rubens 5th generation watercolours, and again they're very pleasant to use watercolours and cheaper than other brands' professional watercolours, but I don't have that set anymore, again because I've got other watercolours which I just enjoy using more. I found the Paul Rubens watercolours very uniform, and overall I prefer watercolours that have got a bit more character to them, where there are maybe more interesting mixers or more granulation, that kind of thing. And I was also sent some Paul Rubens sparkly watercolour paper. I found that the paints laid down quite nicely on this, But one thing I was less keen on about the paper is that it kind of puffed up ever so slightly. And I tend to use my watercolours as a base for other mixed media. And I just didn't really like the feel of how the other media laid down over the top of the watercolours, especially when the paper was still a little bit damp. So my Neocolor 2s, for example. And I also wasn't really interested in having the sparkle to the paper. So I no longer have those papers. Then around that time, I also bought 5 Lutea watercolours. The yellow one I ended up having refunded because it was really, really hard and very hard to squeeze out the tube. I managed to get some in a pan, but it's very, very dry and crumbly. It's such a shame because as for the colour itself, I really, really do like it. It's kind of like a super subtle yellow greeny colour. Lutea Orange has become one of my favourite paints, and I've got it in my current art travel kit palette. It's this lovely rusty orange colour with interesting specks in it. The Lutea Blue has also become one of my favourite rotation dark blue paints, along with Soda Light and Lunar Blue, those kind of things. The carmine's also a really pretty colour, though I haven't used this one all that much. It's a bit harder to re-wet, and that's probably why I've not used the brown as much either. I mean, I've used a lot of that pan, but you can see it's not a super pigmented paint. And as I showed in my last video, testing the light fastness of some mediums, the Lutea watercolours don't fare that well. This is after 8 months of being in a south-facing window, and all of them have faded quite a bit, except for the mass tone of the indigo. So that's definitely something to be aware of. Then while I've got the paper out, I'd also bought these 2 FW acrylic inks. I'd previously bought quite a few other colours and really enjoyed them, and just wanted to add a couple more. I don't use acrylic inks all that often, but I do really, really like these, and I'm definitely hanging on to them. Then on to books. I bought a few books around that time. I've recently undergone a major clear out, and so I have culled quite a few of my books, but these ones all made the cut. So there's Making Colour Sing by Jeanne Dobie. I haven't read this book loads over the last 18 months, but I've read it enough to know that I want to hang on to this one and continue using it in the future. And the same applies for this one, Oil Painting, Fill Your Oil Paintings with Light and Colour by Kevin D. McPherson. Really, really lovely book. Again, I've not done much oil painting over the last year, but I know I want to hang on to this for when I rotate back to using oils more. I also bought How to Be an Artist by Jerry Saltz, and I really enjoyed this book. I read all of it, and I underlined quite a few bits throughout it, and it's the kind of book that I will read again when I need to inspire myself a bit. So yeah, enjoyed that one. And then I'd bought this sticker book, which I'd seen on someone else's YouTube. I think that's where it was anyway. And it's just all these fish. I've not actually used any of them, but I think it's because I feel too precious about them. I just flick through it from time to time and it makes me smile. Yeah, I like having that around. There are also a couple of books from around that time, which I don't have anymore. One of them is Ways of Drawing. When I was looking through it again recently, deciding whether to keep it or not, it really is a lovely, lovely book, but I didn't feel like it was particularly inspiring for me for what I need at the moment. And then there was also the book Experimental Nature, which I don't have anymore. I'd used it for references a couple of times in the past, but again, flicking through it, I just didn't feel like it was one I'd turn to very much in the future. Then Artix were kind enough to send me some art materials. They'd sent me 2 sets of their gouache paints in round metal tins, and also a set of their soft pastels. I quite enjoyed using the materials. These were the gouache paints. Really, really nice colours and easy to use. But as with quite a few things I'm finding, I have my absolute favourite brands of professional versions of that medium, and I just prefer those. So I end up not using the student grades. So it's not really worth it for me to hang on to them. And that was the same situation with the soft pastels. They were quite nice to use, but I just have other materials which I prefer more. I'd done this picture at the time, and this was a gouache underlay with the soft pastels on top. That's all I've used in this sketchbook so far, but I will get around to using this. I like how the pages lay completely flat, so the binding's like that, so that even all the way through you can still lay it flat. I'm just using up other sketchbooks first before I get onto this one. Then I'd also bought myself these Unison soft pastels, and this is the landscape half stick set. And I absolutely love this set. I haven't used them loads and loads, just because I don't do soft pastels loads and loads. But whenever I do a soft pastel painting, these are always out. And yeah, these won me over straight away. And since then, I've also bought more Unison soft pastels. I got their 2 grey sets to fill in some gaps of colours that I needed. They don't look very grey, but they are classed as the grey set. So yeah, absolutely love these pastels. And as I was getting into soft pastels around 18 months ago, I'd also bought this Sennelier landscape set. And I absolutely love these too. I find the Senneliers and the Unison soft pastels to be around a similar hardness. They are at the very soft end of the soft pastel spectrum. Of the ones I've tried out, I'd say that only the Schmincke soft pastels are softer and more crumbly. So much so that I don't particularly enjoy the Schmincke ones. I'm really happy to stick with the Unison and Sennelier. And I think this landscape set has got a really good range of colours. It was just some of the more muted greys that I felt I needed in addition. I don't do soft pastels all that often, maybe once a month. This is one done using the Senneliers, the Unisons, and also the Prismacolour NuPastels, which I'll go on to in a second. I don't have any other soft pastel paintings to show you because I've sold all the other ones that I've done. So around the same time I'd also bought these Prismacolour Premier NuPastels, and this is the full range, the 96 set. This comes with 2 trays. And these are a lot harder than the Snellier and Unison pastels, but I use these for putting finer details on at the end. I think some people use these as like the under painting, the under layer, but I don't use them for that. I like to go in straight in with the soft ones. And I snap an end off these so that I can use them on their side if I want to as well. But you can get really nice edges with the square format of these, and they do have a nice colour range. So for me now, whenever I'm going to do a soft pastel painting, I get all of these out, and I'm really, really happy with this setup. I'm not looking to try and get any more soft pastels or try out different brands. Though I'm not saying I won't get curious about something new in the future, but I am very happy with this setup. Then I'd also got this Winsor & Newton Field Pocket Set, and I'd adapted it a little bit so that I could fit my own half pans that had got magnets on the bottom, but I don't have this anymore. I think I just ended up feeling it was a little bit too fiddly, and I didn't particularly like the water mixing areas, and that I'd get the backs of everything messy when I was folding it away. So I don't have this anymore. And then finally I bought myself this little printing press and some rubber blocks for doing carving with. I'd used Hessian backed Lino in the past to carve into, but I found that I really, really enjoy this pink rubber. I carved both of these and have reused this one in particular again and again, and it still prints beautifully. So I'll probably always use these pink blocks from now on. I bought quite a few at the time, so they'll last me for ages. But yeah, highly recommend that. And then this printing press has been wonderful. So you have your paper you're printing onto in there, your inked up carving goes face down there, and then this just lets you get a lot of leverage and pressure down onto it, and this has made life so much easier. It's been much gentler on my wrists, and it's just meant that I've been happy to do more printing. So I make cards like these, and each of these is individually printed. But before, when I'd run out, I'd be like, oh, I need to do a load more printing. And I just had this little Baron to rub down on the backs. But now with this, I do absolutely loads at a time, and I quite enjoy the process now. So yes, quite a few different products. Some like this, and all of the soft pastels I bought. Oh, and I bought this Lamy Safari pen around the same time as well, which is absolutely covered in acrylic paint, but I love it. Yeah, so some which have become absolute firm favourites, and others which I no longer have. I'm in the nice position that I can try out a lot of art materials, and so I have been able to work out my absolute favourites, and that means that there are some art materials which I don't have any longer, but that's not to say that they aren't decent art materials. It does come down to personal preference quite a bit. But hopefully this has been useful or interesting anyway. Thank you for watching. Bye!